count down, or should I just go ahead and start?
Just go ahead and start.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Maggie from the Plainfield Library, and it's time for Reader's Advisory Extraordinaire. Now that summer is here, I picked a book for your summer reading enjoyment called One Summer by Bill Bryson. I bet you're all thinking, wait a minute, Bill Bryson, doesn't he write history and nonfiction? And look at the size of that big, thick book. How could this be a good summer read? But guess what? It is! You won't be able to put it down. Bill Bryson is great. He's awesome. He's prolific. He's written lots and lots of books. He makes everything sound so interesting. He's breezy, lighthearted, humorous. And the book that his latest book, this one called One Summer, is about the United States in the year 1927. Okay, so what was so great about 1927? Who knew? Everything. Everything happened in the year of 1927. Let's see if I can remember some of them. Probably one of the biggest ones was a contest, and it was run by a hotel owner in New York City. And he was going to give $25,000 to the first pilot who could fly nonstop from New York City to Paris, across the Atlantic Ocean. Never been done before. All kinds of people tried. There were some famous aviators. There were some terrible mishaps. There was one really famous aviator who gathered an enormous crowd in an airport in New York and took off and barely went past the tree line. Crash! Nothing to be heard but crickets chirping and birds singing. Oh boy, in front of a crowd of thousands, that was the end of him. But here comes a young man in his early 20s from the Midwest named Charles Lindbergh. He had a tiny little plane that was really nothing but a gas tank with wings. It was made out of canvas, so it was like he was flying in a pup tent. What does he do? He takes off from New York City, lands exactly where he expected to land, exactly where he expected to land in Paris in front of crowds of hundreds of thousands. He was by far the most famous person in the whole world in the summer of 1927. But what else happened during that summer? Well, there was an epic flood of the Mississippi River. Al Capone was, believe it or not, the premier businessman in Chicago. Prohibition was in its 9th year, but there were more bars, saloons, taverns in New York City than there had ever been. Plus, there were gangsters. Let's see. The United States was sinking into terrible moral decline. There was movies and that awful jazz, and the women in their scanty clothes, and they were dancing the Charleston, and it was the beginning of tabloid newspapers. And what else? Let's see. Henry Ford had a really harebrained idea. He didn't like the fact that Firestone was charging more for his rubber tires. So Henry Ford decided that he would start a city down on the Amazon River called Fordlandia, where they would grow their own rubber trees. I wonder how that turned out. Oh, and guess what? The worst school massacre in American history happened in 1927, and you'll never guess where. Here in Michigan. Do you want to read about that? It's in this book. And another thing you can do that you can enjoy in this book is Bill Bryson has a character who's very much like Where's Waldo? I wonder if you can identify that character as you read this book. What a lot of fun. You're going to love the summer of 1927. You're going to wish he had written one for every decade.